My closest friend wanted to steal the spotlight at my wedding so badly that she smashed my face. Can you imagine your best friend, the person you trusted most, trying to utterly destroy the most important day of your life? Mine didn't just try. She succeeded in a way I never saw coming, leaving a trail of betrayal and manipulation that almost cost me everything. Kayla and I met sophomore year, and from day one, she made it crystal clear who was the sun and who was the planet. She picked me out of a noisy cafeteria, like I was some prized exhibit, and decided I was worthy of her time. For 15 years, I paid her back for that privilege by making myself smaller, fading into the background every time she needed to shine. She was loud, she was fearless, and she made ordinary days feel like grand events. If you asked anyone in our friend group who my best friend was, they'd tell you Kayla, because she'd already told them, first and loudest. When Nate proposed, I called her before anyone else. Her response? Not congratulations, but finally. Now I have a reason to look amazing. I just laughed it off like I always did because being mad at Kayla was always more exhausting than just agreeing. She appointed herself to jobs nobody offered her. She told the florist she was the maid of honor, even though she absolutely wasn't. She told my bridesmaids what to wear and then swore to me they had all agreed on it themselves. When I found my dream dress, she looked at it a long, assessing stare, then said, "It's cute. A little plain for my taste, but it suits you." Everything from her was a small cut, delivered with a smile. And if you flinched, she'd snap that she was just joking, making you the sensitive one for even noticing. At my engagement party, she showed up in a floor-length white dress. My Aunt Bathsheba, bless her heart, walked up and innocently asked if Kayla was the bride. Kayla put her hand flat on her chest, batted her eyelashes, and purred. "Oh, this old thing?" I didn't even think about it. Oh, she thought about it. She absolutely did. Then, at the bridal shower, she stood up without being asked and launched into a story for 40 people about how she introduced me to Nate. It never happened. I met Nate at work. She told it anyway, and the whole room clapped for her while I sat there, stunned, my hands in my lap. Nate never liked her. He told me that within the first month we were together. He said, "She treats you like a backup singer in your own damn life." I always defended her, saying, "She means well." He'd just sigh and say, "No, she doesn't. But it's your call." Every good thing that happened to me, like a promotion, came with a small tax. Kayla would immediately divert attention to her own achievements. And I paid that tax every time, never even calling it a tax. 2 weeks before the wedding, she called about the toasts. I told her the list was already set. She scoffed. "Oh, I'll just say a few words. People expect it from me. I'm basically the main friend." Then, she called my caterer behind my back and moved herself to the head table. When I moved her back to her assigned seat, she played the victim. "You want me in the corner at your own wedding? That's honestly hurtful." Of course, she sat at the head table. I always moved her back, and she always ended up where she wanted. The wedding day itself was going fine until it wasn't. Kayla arrived in a red dress cut down past her ribs and deliberately walked in front of me twice, while the photographer was trying to take pictures. During dinner, she kept standing up to check on things that absolutely did not need checking. Every time she stood, every eye in the room followed her, which, of course, was the entire point. She even snatched the microphone out of the best man's hand mid-toast and announced, "Let me add something, because I know the bride best." Then she talked about herself for 2 agonizing minutes. My cousin, Brennis, leaned over and whispered, "Is she the wedding planner?" I just sighed. "No, she's just Kayla." Nate leaned in from the other side, his voice low. "Say the word." "And she's gone." I just told him it was fine. Then came the cake. It was white with small gold flowers, and I had picked it out by myself. I loved it more than almost anything else about that day. We cut the first slice together. Everyone cheered. Nate fed me a bite. I fed him one back. It was sweet, normal, and ours. Then Kayla burst through the front row, laughing, shouting, Okay, let's make this fun." Before I could even blink, her hand was on the back of my head, pushing down. The other hand came up. a fistful of my beautiful wedding cake, and shoved it into my face. My cheek, my mouth, my hair, my veil, 3 hours of work, gone in one sickening second. The room went quiet. Not just quiet, but that ugly kind of quiet where you can hear a fork scrape a plate. Kayla was still laughing, looking around. "Oh, come on. It's a joke. Don't be so uptight." I couldn't speak. I just stood there, frosting dripping down my jaw, feeling every single person in that room silently deciding how to react. Nate calmly put down his plate. He stepped between us, his voice a low growl. "You need to leave." Kayla rolled her eyes. "Relax, it's cake. She can wash it off." "God, you two are so serious." Nate's eyes, usually so warm, were ice. "You wore white to her engagement party. You lied about introducing us. And now, you put your hands on my wife. At her own wedding? Get your bag." She looked around the room, desperate, searching for someone, anyone, to save her. She put on her hurt face, the one I had watched work 100 times over 15 years. "Wow," she sniffled. "After everything I did for this wedding? I practically planned half of it." Nate didn't flinch. "You planned nothing. You showed up and made it about you." My uncle Rajesh was already standing. So was one of the groomsmen. Kayla saw them both. Her bravado crumbled. She snatched her purse and snapped. "Fine. This wedding was boring anyway." Rajesh escorted her to the door. "I know the exact time. 9:14 p.m., because of what happened 3 weeks later." Nate gently wiped my face with a napkin, right there in front of everyone. He said, loud enough to carry to the back of the room, "Sorry about that, folks." The trash took itself out. People laughed. The real kind of laughter. The music came back on, and the rest of the night? It was better without her. We flew out the next morning. I put my phone away, telling myself the hardest part was over. But when we landed a week later, there were 47 messages waiting for me. I'm not rounding that number, 47. Old classmates, girls from our group, even someone I hadn't spoken to since college. They all said a version of the same thing. "Kayla is really hurt. She says you threw her out. Don't you think that was a little extreme?" She had spent my entire honeymoon telling everyone her version of events, giving her a 7-day head start on a story I didn't even know existed. In her version, the cake incident was playful and harmless, and Nate lost his mind. He screamed at her. He grabbed her arm. He made her feel unsafe. That was the word she planted in everyone's heads. Unsafe. I called the friend I trusted most, and she answered in that soft, careful voice people use on someone fragile. She said, Kayla was sobbing when she told me. She said he grabbed her arm. I said, that never happened. There were 100 people in that room. My uncle walked her out. There was a long pause, then my friend just said, well, she seemed really upset. Maybe you should just talk to her. I called 2 more. One believed me right away. The other said she didn't want to pick sides, and that we needed to work it out between us, which is what people say when they've already picked. Nate listened to my half of all 3 calls. When I hung up, he looked at me, his gaze steady. She's not trying to get you back. She's painting me as the villain, so you'll feel guilty enough to let her back in your life. He was exactly right. If Nate was dangerous, then nothing at the wedding was her fault. And I wasn't a bride who had been humiliated. I was just a wife being controlled. That night, she texted me, hey, I know things got out of hand. I've been crying every day since the wedding. I just wanted to make things fun. You know me. I never meant to hurt you. Can we talk? I miss my best friend. I read it 3 times. And I felt the old pull, the one that says, she's trying. Just give her one more chance. That's what good friends do. Nate sat down next to me. He didn't reach for my phone. He just said, if you want to answer her, answer her. But read it again, and count how many times she says, and count how many times she says sorry. So I counted. 11 I's. 0 sorries. 2 days later, another text. I guess you're ghosting me after 15 years of friendship. That says a lot about you. That afternoon, Nate really changed you. The old you would never do this. That night, Fine. Ignore me. But when you need me, don't come running back. Guilt, then blame, then a threat. All in about 72 hours. I screenshotted every single one and put them in a folder on my phone because some part of me already knew I was going to need to prove I wasn't the crazy one. Then my husband's phone lit up on the nightstand. She had gone around me. The message said, "You turned her against me. I hope you're happy. She was my friend before she was your wife." That's not someone trying to repair a friendship. That's someone trying to open a seam in a marriage. I told him to block her. I blocked her, too. 3 days later, the doorbell rang on a Saturday morning. I was standing at the counter with my coffee, in an old t-shirt, and Nate was still asleep upstairs. Kayla was on my porch, gift bag in hand, with that regular Kayla smile, the one she wears walking into a room she expects everyone to be thrilled about. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. She held the bag up. "I brought you a wedding present. Can I come in?" I just said, "I didn't invite you." Her smile froze in place, like a paused video. She said, "I know, but we can't fix this over text." Then she cried. And it wasn't her usual theatrical crying. It was messy. Her nose went bright red, she gulped for air, and she whimpered. "I don't have anyone else. You're my only real friend. Everyone else just tolerates me, and I know that. I know I make everything about me, and I don't know how to stop." In 15 years, I had never heard her admit any of that out loud. It sounded true because it was true, and I almost reached out and put my hand on her arm. Then she wiped her face and smoothly added, "And honestly, if Nate hadn't made such a scene, none of this would have blown up." There it was. She'd opened the door with something real, just so she could walk the lion in behind it. I said, "You smashed cake into my face at my wedding. Nobody made you do that." She said, "It was a joke. I've seen it in 100 videos. Couples do it all the time." I snapped back, "Couples do it to each other. You were a guest, and you put your hands on me." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and nothing came out. Nate came down the stairs behind me, his voice flat. "I thought we were clear." Kayla's jaw set. "I'm not here for you. I'm here for my friend." He said, "Your friend didn't invite you." Then she looked at me, leaned in, and said the thing she knew would land. "Are you really going to let him talk for you? You used to have your own voice, remember?" And Nate did the best thing he has ever done for me. He went quiet. He didn't step in front of me. He stood a little behind my shoulder and waited. He let me decide. I said, "Kayla, I need you to leave. Not because Nate is telling me to, but because I'm telling you. Stop texting. Stop showing up. Stop telling people my husband put his hands on you." My voice shook, but I got every single word out anyway. She dropped the gift bag on the porch, and it landed with a soft thud. 15 years, and this is how it ends? You'll regret this when you realize he's the one who isolated you. She walked to her car fast, the same way she walked out of the reception. Nate put the bag in the garage that evening, without opening it. For a week, it was quiet, and I let myself believe it was over. Then Brennis called. "Have you talked to anybody from your group this week?" Kayla had gone back out. She was telling people Nate was controlling. She was telling people I wanted to forgive her, and he wouldn't let me. I called the friend who had believed me before, and she said, "I'm not saying I believe her, but are you okay? Like, really okay?" She was asking if I was safe. That's what Kayla had planted in her head. My friend then said, "I believe you, but she's very convincing when she cries." That was the whole problem in one line. I could tell the truth in a phone call, and Kayla could outcry it in 30 seconds. I was never going to win a contest scored on tears. Nate, ever practical, said, "You don't fight a story with a better story. You fight it with the record." And then he said the thing that changed everything. "We paid a videographer $1,100. Where is the raw footage?" I had completely forgotten it existed. We got the highlight film 3 weeks after the wedding, for minutes of slow motion and music, and I watched it once, then never thought about it again. Raw footage is different. Raw footage is every card from every camera, unedited, with a time code burned into the corner of every single frame. I emailed the videographer that night, and he sent a download link the next morning. 9 hours of files. Nate and I sat at the dining table with the laptop between us and scrubbed through the reception. At 9:09 p.m., there's a wide shot of the cake table. You can see Kayla standing at the edge of the frame, not laughing, not caught up in anything, just watching us waiting. At 9:11, she moves. There is no angle where it looks like an accident. She takes the back of my head with her left hand and shoves the cake into my face with her right. She holds my head there for a full second before she lets go. At 9:13, Nate steps in. He never touches her. His hands stay at his sides the entire time, and the camera never once leaves them. At 9:14, Rajesh walks her out from about 4 feet away, and she is smiling on her way to the door. Not crying. Smiling. The time code is in the corner of every frame of all of it. But that was only the first thing. The second thing came from a bridesmaid I'd barely spoken to since the wedding. I sent her the clip, and 40 minutes later, she sent me back a screenshot. It was from a group chat I wasn't in, 9 people, most from our friend group, started by Kayla 4 days before the wedding. The message was hers, time-stamped, her name at the top. Watch me at the cake. It's gonna be legendary. Underneath it, someone had replied with 3 laughing faces. 4 days before. Not a joke that got away from her. A plan she made advertised, then performed, and then spent 3 weeks describing to everyone we knew as something that just sort of happened to her. I sat and stared at that screenshot for a long time, not because it hurt, although it did, but because for 15 years I had been arguing with a feeling, and now I was holding a document. The bridesmaid sent the rest of the chat too, 40 screenshots of it. It was all in there. Her asking who was bringing a camera. Her saying the red dress was going to do numbers. And then, after the wedding, in the same chat, her writing that she was going to let it cool off and then do the apology in front of the family because I can't say no to her in front of people. That wasn't me guessing at her strategy. That was her strategy, written down by her, in her own words, before she even ran it. There was a third thing. Looking for the videographer's invoice, I found the caterer thread from 6 weeks before the wedding. Kayla had emailed him directly. Her message said the bride had asked her to update the head table count, and she attached a new seating chart with her own name typed onto it. She had put my name in her mouth in writing. It was time-stamped on a Thursday at 2:41 in the afternoon, the same afternoon she called me, claiming the seating chart was making her feel like an afterthought. 2 days later, Brennis texted me that Kayla had asked her mother what time the family cookout started because she wanted to come and clear the air. I called Bathsheba and told her Kayla was planning to show up. She said, "Let her come." I said, "Are you sure?" She said, "I have been waiting 3 weeks for this." I forwarded her everything. The clip, the time codes, the screenshots, the caterer email. She called me back 40 minutes later and said one word. Good. The morning of the cookout, I woke up without my jaw clenched for the first time since the wedding. We got there early. Rajesh was at the grill by 9 a.m., tongs in one hand, a drink in the other. Brennis was lining up cups, all the handles facing the same way. I carried folding chairs across the grass and set out condiments. It felt so ordinary that I almost forgot why I had been bracing all week. Nobody said her name. For about an hour, I actually relaxed, the real kind, where your shoulders just drop without you telling them to. Then Brennis stopped mid-sentence and looked past my shoulder. I turned around. Kayla was coming through the gate in a sundress, her hair down, a bottle in a gift bag, waving at people like she was just running a little late to a party she had been invited to. She walked straight to me, not stopping to talk to anyone. She looked down at me and said, loud enough for the entire yard, "Hey, I wanted to say I'm sorry in person, in front of everyone, so you know I mean it." I stood up. I wasn't doing this looking up at her. The music was still going, but nobody was talking. Her eyes went wet right on cue, and she said, "I was wrong. The cake thing was stupid. I got caught up in the moment, and I ruined your night, and I am so sorry." Then she let it hang there. If I said no, I was cold. If I said nothing, I was cruel. She had built the field, put me on it, and dared me not to play. And she had won that game every single time for 15 years. Then she couldn't help herself. She wiped her eyes and added, I just hope Nate can forgive me, too. I know he's protective. I just don't want him to think I'm a bad person. Protective. One word, slid in sideways, reminding every single person in that yard about the story she'd been feeding our friends for 3 weeks. I said, You got caught up in the moment? She nodded. Yes. I asked, What moment was that? She blinked. At the cake. It was spur of the moment. I didn't think. And I took my phone out of my back pocket and turned the screen around. 4 days before the wedding, you wrote, Watch me at the cake. It's going to be legendary. My voice was firm. 9 people saw it. It's time-stamped. Her face did something I had never seen it do. It just stopped. Bathsheba stepped forward from where she had been standing with her arms crossed for the last 5 minutes. And the part where he grabbed you? Say that part again out loud. Kayla mumbled. I don't want to do this here. Bathsheba's voice was calm, but steel. Honey, you picked here. Then she continued. The videographer shot 9 hours of raw footage with a time code in the corner of every frame. 9:11 p.m. You take her head. 9:13 p.m. Nate steps in, with his hands at his sides. 9:14 p.m. My brother walks you out, and you are smiling on the way to the door. Would you like to watch it, or would you like to keep talking? Kayla looked around the yard, desperately doing what she always does, hunting for one crack. One person who would say this had gone far enough. Rajesh had set the tongs down. Brennis was standing behind my shoulder. Nate was 10 feet away, arms crossed, not moving, letting my family handle it. Not one person looked away. Not one person stepped in. She came for a stage, and she got a mirror. Bathsheba wasn't finished. One more. At the engagement party. What color was your dress? Kayla stammered. I don't remember. Bathsheba's eyes were sharp. I do. So, does the photographer. He shot 400 frames that night, and I have all of them. Kayla tried one last time. She forced a hollow laugh. Okay, so you're all ganging up on me. I came here to apologize, and this is what I get. She turned to me, her voice dripping with accusation. Are you really going to stand there and let your family do this after 15 years? And there it was, the last move, the same one she had been running since we were 16. Choose me over the people who love you. I took a deep breath. Nobody is ganging up on you, Kayla. I held up my phone. They're reading what you wrote. She dropped it then, all of it, in about a second. The way a mask comes off when the string breaks. Her voice went hard and flat. Fine, throw it all away. But don't act like you were so innocent. You were nobody in high school. I made you. I had been afraid of that sentence my whole adult life. And standing in that yard, with the screenshot still open on my phone, it didn't land the way it used to. I met her gaze. You didn't make me, Kayla. You just made sure I never forgot I needed you. And for 15 years, I believed it. She had nothing. No spin, no redirect, no tears that were going to work on anybody standing in that grass. Rajesh walked across the yard. I'm asking you the same way I asked you at the wedding. You can walk out on your own. She picked her gift bag up off the table. Her shoulders came down, and her voice dropped to almost nothing. You're going to be so lonely without me. I said, I was lonely with you.
My voice was steady.
Every time something good happened to me, you had to do it bigger. I spent 15 years shrinking so you could feel tall. She turned and walked across the grass toward the gate. Nobody said her name. Nobody said, wait. At the gate, she stopped with her hand on the latch and looked back at me. She opened her mouth. And for the first time since the day I met her, nothing came out. She closed it. She pushed the gate open, pulled it shut behind her, and the latch clicked. And that was the quietest sound I have ever heard. Bathsheba clapped her hands together. Burgers are getting cold. A chair scraped on the patio. Somebody turned the music back up. I sat down between Nate and Brennis and put food on a plate and ate it. And the burger was overcooked because Rajesh had left the grill, but it was the best damn thing I have ever tasted. The gift bag is still in the garage behind the paint cans, with the tissue paper still poking out.